Hey guys, good afternoon. How's it going? Today is Monday, December 29th, 2025. Currently 45 degrees Fahrenheit. That is 7 degrees Celsius. A very chilly but pleasant winter's day here as the year 2025 comes to a close. So, my house sit is over. As I discussed in my last video, I was house sitting up in Portland for 9 days. That finished yesterday, and then I caught a bus down here to Salem. So Salem is my address. I use a good friend of mine's home address, Eric, who I went to university with in Fairbanks, Alaska. Met him back in 1990, so we've known each other for more than 35 years. This was right after my Europe trip for the summer. Long story, but we were roommates up in Alaska, and then he moved back down. We are both originally from California, and so he has been here in Salem for about 20 years, I believe. This is a new development area, as you can see. Construction going on there, all these new looking condos, apartments, whatever. They bought a brand new house, my friend Eric and his wife Lori. And so I'm down here visiting them and also getting my mail. Okay, we have a park of some sort here. Let's go ahead and wander this way. I have never walked down here at all before, so this is all just kind of a matter of random wandering. We have a guy with a dog, not worried about the dog, but to just not have to walk past somebody while I'm just getting started with the video, then let's keep on cruising this way. So came down here yesterday to hang with these guys for a few days as I kind of figure out my plans, and also I'm shopping for a vehicle potentially, and also to get my mail, because as I said, I use their address. So in my last video then I discussed the very unfortunate circumstance of both my credit card and debit card getting hacked within a week and having to cancel the cards, and so they have been mailed. I picked up my credit card, was here waiting for me yesterday, but the debit card incident occurred later, and so that is in the mail and it will arrive sometime this week, and so I will be hanging out here at least until that shows up in the mail. So I thought that it would be appropriate, relevant to follow up my last video with another video discussing the very important topic of how to keep your cash safe, how to avoid fraud, scams, all the potential money problems in the course of traveling. Of course, this can apply to life in general, since we're all using various cards, credit cards, debit cards, and then the various other forms of payment, but your risk is definitely amplified when you are traveling in foreign countries, using ATMs regularly, using your credit card at lots of different places, in touristy places where fraud is more likely. And so it is definitely a greater risk when traveling. So kind of the first thing that I want to mention here on that topic is that to some extent it is just inevitable, unavoidable. There is no way that you can 100% protect yourself from any sort of fraud, theft, etc. If you have cash on you, you can get pickpocketed. That has happened to me once. In the old days, you had traveler's checks. There are issues with traveler's checks. That's irrelevant now. Nobody uses them. No card system can necessarily be 100% fully foolproof, but there are certainly very effective ways to limit the possibilities of these various scams and fraud and everything happening. So I'm going to go through some of the ways to protect yourself. First, I will very quickly go through what happened, which I explained in further detail in my last video. So the good news is that in the course of my 35 years of traveling to 97 countries, I have been relatively lucky, whatever, in terms of avoiding much in the way of theft, scams, fraud, etc. So this is really the first major incident in the course of my traveling career of a significant amount of cash being stolen. There have been a few incidents in the past of small charges to my credit card. I had to cancel it a time or two in the past, but it was nothing serious and it was quickly refunded. So what happened this time is that I was in Bali, Indonesia just a little over a week ago, and got an alert about my credit card that there had been some suspicious charges. They were very small, like $5, $21. And so I canceled the card, called my company, Capital One, and they, refunded those charges. They were easy to identify, and then mailed me the new card. And so I thought, well, dodged a bullet or whatever, no big deal on that one, except for the pain of then having to get the new card because I wasn't quite certain of my plans at the time. So that was one of many factors. I didn't come back just to pick up the card. That was just one of various factors. But that can still be quite a pain, even if you don't lose much in the way of money. If you have to cancel a card and then no longer have use of that card, and you're in the middle of your trip, that could potentially be quite a big issue. And so this leads to the first and most important thing. Actually, before I get to that, I will just say, always have emergency cash on you. So that is really kind of the number one action to take to protect yourself, is always have some cash on you in a major currency, US dollars, euros, British pounds, Canadian dollars, Australian dollars, whatever, something like that that you can exchange in any sort of a tourist location with exchange desks, so that if an ATM machine eats your card, you lose your card, get robbed, pickpocketed, whatever, then you have actual cash to get you through the next few days, week, whatever. So on this last trip of mine, then I had $500 US cash with me. And in the course of this last 3.5 month trip, then I ended up using only $100. Let's just wander up here, see what's up here. I used a $100 bill at one point in South Korea when I landed in the airport there, and then the ATM machine wasn't working for me. Okay, it says no trespassing, so let's not trespass. All right, let's turn it around, go in another direction here. So always make sure that you have some cash on you. And then secondly, make sure that you have more than one card. I have, I believe, 5 different cards. I have a Capital One credit card. I then have a Wells Fargo credit card. I have my Wells Fargo debit card. I have a Canadian bank account. Not everybody can, make use of that one, but I am a dual American Canadian, and I was up in Canada working years ago, and then I was there again during COVID for lockdown for a while and transferred some cash into my account there just to have as kind of an emergency backup kind of a situation. And then I have a PayPal, I guess you would call it a debit card, because you have money in your PayPal account and then you can withdraw from that. Now, I've never used that one, but just have it as another backup. So those are two of the most important, just initial things. Have cash on you and have more than one card, so that, for example, in this case of my credit card getting hacked, that doesn't cancel my trip. If all you have is your one debit card and then your card gets stolen, whatever, now you're stuck. You can't get cash, other than hopefully you have that emergency cash to get you through a week or whatever, but then you're stuck. And so this is the situation that I ended up in Bogota, Colombia, when I got pickpocketed and had no access to cash. And so I was stuck there in Bogota waiting for a new card to be mailed to me. And so one thing to keep in mind is that, as I said, there is no foolproof way to 100% avoid any sort of incidents of these types. And so you don't want to be, preoccupying your travels with always worrying about this kind of stuff. To some extent, it is just a matter of you're probably going to get ripped off one way or another, especially if you're traveling, for months or years. And so do what you can, and then don't stress it past that. If something happens, it happens, and then you deal with it. It is not the end of the world to lose some money. So, of course, you want to avoid that to the best of your ability. And so one of the ways to make sure you don't lose everything is to have things separated into different accounts. And so I will go through what I have in that regard, although I kind of just mentioned it. But first of all, within my Wells Fargo account, then I have multiple different accounts. So I have a Wells Fargo bank account, and within that I have a checking account. I also have another checking account within my Wells Fargo bank account, kind of randomly, basically because I opened up a checking account and then later they changed something and they just added on this other checking account. And so it's redundant, but in a way it's kind of a good thing, because then my card accesses one account and then the other account is not accessible by the card. And then thirdly, I have a savings account. And then fourthly, I have my Wells Fargo credit card account. And so I have had cash separated into those various accounts this whole time. And in fact, I put more money into my savings account precisely to avoid all my cash being drained. And then, as I mentioned, I have the Canadian bank account, which I don't make much use of. Just got some cash in there as backup. It did come in especially handy once when I was in the West Bank, Palestine, and tried to withdraw money. It wasn't working with my Wells Fargo debit card, but then luckily it did work with my Canadian debit card. So that's just kind of the basic setup of how to make sure you don't end up in a situation with no card and or all of your cash being drained out as a result of what just happened to me. And so I will finally get around to explaining that for those who didn't happen to see the last video. And so I decided to come back to the US, flew into Seattle, and then trained down to Portland and started this house sit. And like the third day that I was there at the house, then I get a notification, text message, and email, this time from Wells Fargo, about an attempted withdrawal from my checking account at an ATM in Seoul, South Korea for $750 US. That was declined, so that was not successful. They didn't get the cash, but I then log into my Wells Fargo bank account online and discover that there were 3 withdrawals that succeeded in Belgrade, Serbia for $869 each, which comes to $2,607. And so they did get the cash, and that is now in process, and I'm actually going to call them right after I finish recording this video and get a update, if I can, on the progress, and just kind of pressure the issue a little bit. Mention the video that I filmed in order to alert them to the fact that I have a YouTube channel, and I am planning to make another video reporting the results of what happens, and hope that the awareness on their part of my having a YouTube channel and making videos about what's going on could help them do the right thing and refund my money, considering that it was no fault of my own, because I still have the card. I never lost those cards. Now, under the last video, then there were lots of suggestions, and so that is sort of the part 2 of this, is to add some additional ideas. Now, one idea does not work for me, although it might work for some of you, which is to not even deal with the cards and just travel with cash. So there are 2 major issues with that, in my opinion. The first is that's only going to work really for shorter trips, a week, 2 weeks, maybe a month. You could withdraw $1,000, $2,000, which itself is a fair amount of cash to have on you. But if you're traveling longer term, this last trip of mine, 3.5 months, I don't know exactly what I spent. People will often ask me, how much do you spend per month? I don't keep a tally going. I could go look in my account and add up, based on what I paid on booking.com and all this, but I just keep track of what's in my bank account and roughly what am I making, and just have a rough estimate of, what I'm making, what I'm spending. But whatever I spent on this last trip, 3.5 months to 9 different countries, it was certainly more than $10,000. I don't want to travel around with $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 in cash on me. I mean, that would be a major mistake, and leaving yourself wide open to obviously losing that cash one way or another. So the just go cash suggestion doesn't work for me. Additionally, there is the issue of exchanging that cash, which of course you're going to have to do if you're traveling outside of the US. And currency exchange desks don't tend to give you very good rates. It's extremely variable, depends on the country you're in, depends on where you are, at an airport, train station, smack in the tourist zone, whatever. Exchange rates are extremely variable, and almost every currency exchange desk is going to rip you off to some extent, compared to the exchange rate that my bank applies when I withdraw cash from an ATM machine using my debit card. I have checked this lots of times. I have mentioned many times about the importance of declining conversion, this ATM scam, I call it, because I believe it is a straight up scam in which the company that owns the ATM machine is offering you an exchange rate and giving you the exact dollar amount that you will withdraw from your account. And this is the convenience, supposedly, of what they're offering, is that you then see on the screen exactly how much they are going to withdraw, as opposed to you withdraw, for example, 100 euros, and you don't know exactly how much that is going to be converted into US dollars, for example, because your bank is going to handle the conversion. And so they're saying, here's exactly how much we're going to charge you for the 100 euros that you're going to withdraw from our ATM machine. So basically, what is going on with that is they are thieves telling you how much money they're going to steal from you. That is the only service that is being offered in that case, is they are informing you how much money they're going to steal from you unnecessarily. Because the exchange rates offered by the ATM machine are always a terrible deal, and they can be very significant. You withdraw 100 euros, 200 euros, 300 euros, whatever, and you could lose $10, $20, $40, up to like 60, 70 bucks sometimes, purely to withdraw money. As opposed to some ATMs charge nothing, zero ATM fee, or at worst, they charge $5, $6, $7. So you have the ATM machine trying to convert your cash for you and charge you 20, 40, 60, 70 bucks, or you pay a fee. So always decline conversion. And so then once you've declined that conversion, that bad rate, your bank is going to make the conversion, and they always make a currency conversion that is based on the daily standard rate for those two currencies, and it is a fair rate, always, with Wells Fargo anyways, and with most banks. And so therefore, having cash is not the greatest idea, because you are not going to get that rate at most currency exchange desks that you go to. So you're going to be losing money every time that you actually exchange that money. But there were plenty of recommendations in the comments under that last video that I agree with, and I will be applying some of them going forwards before I take off on my next big trip. And so I will now go through some of those. So one is to do like I have with the multiple accounts within my Wells Fargo account, and put most of your cash into one that is inaccessible by your debit card. And so I had done this to an extent, but the idea is to take it to more of an extreme and have almost nothing in your checking account that you can access with your debit card, and then just transfer funds. It takes literally 30 seconds online when you're about to make a withdrawal. So have most of your cash in your savings account, and then maybe put $1,000 or whatever in your checking account, or 500, whatever, but an amount that you're kind of okay with losing. Okay, if I lose $1,000, that sucks, but it's not the end of the world here. And so then you are necessarily limiting how much can possibly be drained out of your account if what occurs is something along the lines of what just happened to me, with somebody somehow getting access to your debit card, the skimming fake card situation. And so somebody sent me a link to an article about in Mexico on the Yucatan Peninsula, which is of course a major tourist destination, then there was a Romanian guy who was caught, fortunately, who was coordinating with the Mexican mafia and ATM machine companies in Mexico on the Yucatan, and they were full on just setting up fake ATM machines which still connect to your bank account, and so they aren't 100% fake because they allow you to access your cash, and then they are skimming those card numbers, and then of course doing exactly what just happened to me. And so it is a, you know, international network, of course, of thieves, scammers, and they are obviously very, very, very sophisticated. As for how they got my PIN, I mean, you can have my card, you could actually have my literal card or a duplicate card or whatever, but that doesn't get you into my bank account without my PIN. And so how they got my PIN, unknown, but there are various ways to do that as well. They set up some sort of a camera pointed at the keypad there, and then they just literally just video you entering in your PIN, something like that. And then I'm sure that there are other ways, and so they are very, very good at what they are doing. And so it's a matter of, you know, trying to outsmart them one way or another, or preferably multiple ways to mitigate the possibilities. Now, another very, very good suggestion is to set up alerts so that you are sent a notification, text message, email, anytime a transaction is made, or anytime a transaction is made over a certain amount. And so that's probably what I will end up doing, is assuming that that is possible, should be, is anytime any transaction is made on my account, credit or debit, for like $100 or more, say, you know, $99 is no big deal to have that slip through. But in that case, that's going to catch any major withdrawals or charges, etc., right away. And so if I had gotten that, in this case in Serbia, if I had gotten a notification at least after the first withdrawal, then I would have only lost $869. Still, that's a lot, but that's less than $2,607. So at least that could have caught that. But also, then reducing your ATM withdrawal amount, I had thought that it was at $500. I think that I had requested to raise it at some point and hadn't brought that back down, and so I since adjusted that back down to $500 US maximum daily withdrawal amount in order to limit that as well. Now, another good suggestion is just get out of Wells Fargo, because they do have a bad track record. And as has been suggested, you know, many times in the course of my videos and talking about the ATM situation, etc., then get another account. Charles Schwab, Revolut, Wise. And it wouldn't have to necessarily be a matter of canceling my Wells Fargo account, but get a Revolut or Charles Schwab, transfer money into that account, and then while traveling, use that. And for one thing, it's one additional place to have your cash so that it's separated, and then just be using that with a limited amount of money in it. And also with Charles Schwab and some of these other companies, then they don't charge you a withdrawal fee. So my bank, Wells Fargo, charges me $5 for every international ATM withdrawal. And then the ATMs themselves, of course, oftentimes charge you a fee. And so Charles Schwab will also refund all ATM fees. And so it has lots of good advantages, and many people have recommended them. And then one more recommendation is to regularly check your accounts. Now, I'm not going to make it a practice of, logging into my Wells Fargo account and my Capital One account and my Canadian bank account and PayPal every day to check for potential fraud. For me, it's worth taking a bit of a risk just to not be stressing about it all the time. And so that is kind of part of what I mentioned at the beginning, is there's no 100% foolproof block on any kind of scam fraud happening. To some extent, just accept it's a possibility and go about your business, enjoy your day, have a nice time traveling somewhere. You don't go traveling to then stress about the possibility of theft all of your trip 24/7, but you do want to also keep it in mind. And so I will probably just start checking a little more regularly, but otherwise rely more on the alerts. Set that up so it's tighter, and keep in mind the possibilities while also just trying to have a nice time traveling. And then there were lots of other suggestions. I won't try to go through them all, but if you have more ideas, tips, absolutely put them in the comments down below this video. Feel free to check out that other video and check the comments there, and also to hear the full story of what happened there. And then, as I mentioned previously, I will report back on what the result is from the theft of the $2,600 from my checking account, and let you guys know what Wells Fargo's determination is with that, whether they refund the money or not, and what they have to say about it. So that's all for now. More coming from somewhere. My plans are kind of wide open, so we shall see where I end up next. See ya.